Hello, and welcome to the 2016 segment of Smoke Signals. I'm your host for today's show, Lieutenant Chris Taylor from the LaGrange Fire Department. We have a great show lined up for you today. Our special guest is the Fire Chief of Troup County Fire Department and our Emergency Management Director, Dennis Knight. Also, we want you to remember, this show is going to be about emergency preparedness, so make sure you get a kit, have a plan, and stay informed. So kick back, relax, because you're about to watch Smoke Signals. Welcome back. Today we have with us the Fire Chief of Troup County Fire Department, Dennis Knight. Hello, Chief, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Chris. It's good to be here again.
It's always a pleasure to have you to come and talk with us. I know you have a lot of responsibilities, and we just appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come out and be with us today. I know you have some great information that you have to share with our viewing audience, but before we get into that, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and your roles and responsibilities.
Currently I am the Fire Chief for Troup County Fire Department, and I also serve as the county's Emergency Management Director.
Okay. Now, how long have you been with the Fire Department?
I've been with the Fire Department for 29 years.
And you've served as the EMA Director for how long?
Since 2009.
2009, okay, so dual responsibilities and
Yes, sir.
and we appreciate all that you do for our community and keeping us in contact with our emergency management agency from a state level. We thank you for the services that you provide for this area. We have some very important topics we want to discuss today. And the first one, let's talk about emergency management in general. Can you tell us the role of emergency management?
A simple definition is the role is to create a framework within the community that different organizations can come together and reduce the risk of a hazard or cope with a disaster.
Okay.
Our role is to work with our community partners and other agencies, and we work through all 4 phases of emergency management.
Okay, and since you're mentioning about the phases, what are those 4 phases and how do those phases come together?
The first phase is preparedness, and preparedness involves developing emergency plans. Okay. It could be our local emergency operations plan, a debris removal plan if we had a tornado. Okay. It could be setting up points of distribution for water and ice and food if it's a really bad disaster. Training damage assessment teams. Okay. Maintaining our storm ready status with the National Weather Service. And of course doing training exercises. All of that falls into the preparedness phase. Okay,
and preparedness is one of those things that, you know, it's ongoing. There's a lot of trial and error, but it takes a lot of work from like you said, the stakeholders and other agencies to come together to come up with the topics of concern and being able to put a plan together.
Yes, this is the phase where we build the working relationships with everybody in the community. We have monthly planning meetings with all the stakeholders in the community, whether it's law enforcement, fire, public health, Red Cross, all the different organizations that have a role to play in a disaster. We come together once a month for a short planning meeting and build those relationships so they're already there when something does happen.
Okay, Chief, now could you tell us a little bit about the next phase of the process?
The second phase is the response phase, and that's where we put things into gear after an event happens. Okay. It could be opening the local emergency operations center. It could be activating our local emergency operations plans. We have 15 different emergency support functions that help coordinate the response to an event. And we may activate all 15 of those, or like the recent floods, we may only activate some of those.
Okay.
In the flood event Christmas Eve, we only had 7 of the 15 activated,
Okay.
working at the Emergency Operations Center. That brings us into the third phase, which is recovery. That's where we're at now with the Christmas Eve floods, trying to get our roads and bridges rebuilt, so people can move around through the community in an efficient manner.
Okay.
The fourth phase is mitigation. That's where we try to eliminate or reduce the probability of occurrence of an event. We can address that through building codes, land use patterns, and different other ordinances and regulations.
Okay. So it sounds like it's a pretty extensive plan as far as the 4 phases, and being able to sit down with all the stakeholders that you need to be able to sit down and identify what needs to be done, who needs to do what, and when. I think that's very important.
Yes, sir. And all of our partners in our community work very well together. So we're very fortunate.
Okay. All right. Now we was talking about you was mentioning about floods, and we want to talk a little bit about winter weather. And the Emergency Management Agency experienced some winter weather incidents. Can you kind of talk a little bit about the incident that your office had to participate in as it relates to our community?
We were in a monitoring phase last week due to the weather system that moved through the state. A lot of our neighbors to the north did experience some winter weather. We were very fortunate that it stayed north of us.
Okay.
Every time we'd get another weather update, it seemed like it was creeping closer and closer to our area.
Right.
But we did not have to deal with the winter weather in this last round. There are some new advisories and products that the National Weather Service puts out. And if we can take just a second to talk about a couple of those,
okay,
because they're new. Most people are familiar with watches and warnings.
Right.
A watch means conditions are favorable. When we're talking about winter weather watches, it means that there's a 50% chance that that winter weather event may happen.
Okay.
So they may put out a watch. It could be a winter storm watch or a blizzard watch.
Okay.
That means that there's a 50% chance that we'll see 2 inches of snow or a ½ inch of sleet or a ¼ inch of ice. If it's a warning, that means there's an 80% chance, so the chance is much higher that that event would take place within 36 hours. Okay. So that's the difference between the watch and the warning. A winter weather advisory is a new product that they can use when it doesn't meet the thresholds. Remember I said 2 inches of snow? Mm-hmm. Well, maybe a ½ inch of snow will cause problems for us in Troup County. It doesn't meet the 2 inch threshold on the amount of snow,
right,
but it's still enough to cause problems.
Okay.
So that's when they would issue a winter weather advisory.
Okay. All right, and it's important to understand the difference between those, and not just for winter weather, but any type of winter-related, weather-related situation where you have warnings, watches, and advisories. Now, what are some current projects that the Emergency Management Agency is working on?
Chris, we're still involved with the recovery phase on the Christmas Eve floods.
Okay.
We've had teams from GEMA come through to do preliminary assessment. And we've had teams from FEMA to come through to do preliminary damage assessment.
Okay.
They're trying to see if we have enough damage that we might qualify for federal assistance to help repair our roads and our bridges and our culverts.
Okay. And I remember, because I worked Christmas Eve, and that was a long day. And you know, for people who are preparing for Christmas activities and things of that nature, I can understand that it was kind of a difficult time for a lot of people. And one of the things that we was trying to get out there to the community, as far as, you know, the hazards, is if you don't have to get out, stay inside. That's
true. And in the case of floods, the saying is, turn around, don't drown. You never want to try to drive through floodwaters because you really don't know what the surface of the road is underneath the water.
Now, let me ask you this. Did we see some flooding in areas that we normally don't have flooding?
This was flash floods, so they're a little bit different than widespread flooding.
Okay.
So it depends on which areas of the community had the highest amount of rainfall.
Okay.
So yes, there was some creeks that flooded this time that did not flood, say 10 years ago when we had the last flash flood.
Okay. And so, and just for our viewing audience to understand that a lot of times these floodings are due to overflooded creeks and things of that nature, ponds or what have you that are in low-lying areas. And, you know, people have to understand if you're in those areas, the potential of flooding is imminent. Is that correct?
Yes, we need to stay informed, pay attention to the conditions.
Okay. Was there anything else that you wanted to touch on as it relate to any current projects or anything else that you have going on for this this portion of the year?
Some of the other projects that we have going on right now is of course the update to our local emergency operations plan.
Okay.
It's updated every 4 years. That's an ongoing project, so a lot of work involved with that. But right now most of our time is spent on the recovery efforts from the floods.
Okay. All right. So we want to take this time to thank you for keeping us up to date, first of all, on the things that have already taken place here in our community, and also, you know, helping us to understand about the new warnings, advisories, and the watches as it relate to winter weather, because we want to make sure that people understand that winter weather, we need to keep a close eye on it, because we never know when our community is going to be affected by it, or it may not be our community, but we may have family members in other areas that could be affected by it. So we need to make sure that we communicate with one another, check on our seniors. That's very, very important, because, you know, we have a lot of seniors that live by themselves, and, you know, they may not have the proper heating or things of that nature. So we always want to make sure that we check on our senior adults as it relates to winter weather. And then just take heed to the news stations and other outlets as it relates to getting information about what's going on in our community. We're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna have more here on Smoke Signals. Welcome back. We've been talking with Fire Chief Dennis Knight and EMA Director for Troup County, and you gave us a wealth of information in the first segment. Now we want to talk about some other very important topics, and one that's an important topic and I find kind of interesting is a new program that's come out, and it's called Praise Preparedness. And so could you tell us a little bit about what this Praise Preparedness program is all about?
Sure, Chris. Faith-based organizations play a very important role in local readiness and recovery efforts. Okay. And the Georgia Emergency Management Agency recognized that and started a new program in Georgia called Praise and Preparedness. Okay. And that's where we really reach out to faith-based organizations in 3 different areas. One's facilities, 2 being the congregation, and 3 being the community. Okay. As it pertains to the facility itself, the building, the people there at the building, we want to encourage the faith-based organizations and the different churches to have emergency plans. in case something happens during a service.
Okay.
We need to make sure we have drills at the churches. You know, we have fire drills at schools,
Right.
to make sure everybody knows how to exit the building safely. But if you think about it, have you ever had a fire drill at church? Or a tornado drill at church? Or have you even discussed it with the congregation, what you would do? You know, we've got some small churches in our community, but we also have some large churches
Right.
that would take a little bit of time to get everybody to safety.
Right.
So we want to encourage the faith-based organizations to develop emergency plans for their facilities. The second part deals with the congregation, and the idea is to encourage and share information with the entire congregation on how they can be prepared at home
Okay.
for emergencies. And they want them to make sure they get a kit, an emergency kit of supplies, to have an emergency plan there at home so everybody knows what to do, and to stay informed.
Okay.
And we could go into detail and talk a lot more about those, and we may do that later on. The final part of that praise and preparedness program is community. And we want the faith-based organizations to consider taking on some type of disaster ministry.
Okay.
They could put together a chainsaw team that when a big storm comes through, they actually have a trained team of people that go out and use chainsaws to remove debris from people's driveways and from around their homes. Or they may want to consider some type of feeding program. If we have to open an evacuation shelter, they could come in and help feed the evacuees, or feed some of the volunteers that are out helping out in the community. They could also man volunteer reception centers or call centers. That way, if I'm a member of the community and I have a need and I call into the call center, they can put the right volunteer with me to help me take care of my problem, whether it's a tree across my driveway or my basement's flooded or wherever. Lots of opportunities that they could volunteer in the community.
That sounds great. And you know, when you mentioned about having a fire drill or a tornado drill inside of our faith-based organizations, you know, I think that's something that, you know, those faith-based organizations ought to take seriously. I mean, because you got to take in consideration if you have a worship service or a funeral or a wedding or something like that going on in your faith-based center, and there's a lot of people there. If you don't have any kind of preparedness plan in place, you know, you could have a major disaster with a lot of people. And being able to prepare for those kind of incidents, I think those things are profound. And if there's an organization that is looking at this information right now, where could they go to get information about the Praise and Preparedness Program?
There's more information available at the Georgia Emergency Management Agency website. They can also try ready.ga.gov.
Okay.
Get some information from there. And we do have a local church that is Praise and Preparedness certified. It was one of the first in the state.
Okay.
So it's
Sounds
they
good.
can definitely just call my office and I would help them get more information.
And of course, the more the merrier, because we talk about community, the more we get community involvement, the better off we are being able to serve a mass number of people in an emergency or a disaster situation.
That's correct.
All right. Another special topic, and this is a topic that we talk about every year, even though we talk about it every year, but it happens at the blink of an eye a lot of times, and that is Severe Weather Awareness Week, which is February the 1st through the 5th. So kind of take us through Severe Weather Awareness Week and what to expect and what's actually going on during that time frame.
Sure, Chris. It's a different topic each day of the week. Like you said, it's February 1st through the 5th. I brought a list so I wouldn't leave anything out.
Okay.
Monday, February 1st is Family Preparedness Day and NOAA Weather Radio Day.
Okay.
That's the day that you want to make sure that your family has a plan. They have a communications plan. They have pre-designated places that they would meet if there were a disaster. They have identified an out-of-town person that everybody can call. It may be hard to get through locally to a phone number, but it may be easier to contact somebody out of town. So if everybody knows to call the same person that lives out of town, then that person could relay information to the entire family.
Okay.
It's also NOAA Weather Radio Day. Want to encourage every household to have a working NOAA weather radio. If you've got a weather radio, you're notified of severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings at the same exact time that I am, that the 911 center's notified, so there's no delay. You know it as soon as the Weather Service puts it out.
Okay.
I would like also to encourage people to have some type of battery-operated weather radio. So as the storms impact us and we lose power, they can still monitor and know when it's safe.
Okay, and I'm glad you brought that up, because we live in an age now where power outage can happen at any given time, and being able to have something or an important device as a NOAA weather radio with a battery backup can keep you in connection on what's going on at all times as far as it relates to weather. And I want to throw this in there because we're all talking about being prepared, is having a working smoke alarm in your homes as well with a battery backup. So make sure that you have that working smoke alarm in your home, and it should be on every level of the home, and it needs to be around the sleeping area. So I just want to make sure that we didn't go without talking about smoke alarms as well, since we're talking about the weather radios.
Definitely. And if you're not totally electric, you also want that carbon monoxide detector.
Exactly.
February the 2nd is thunderstorm safety. That's the topic for that day. A lot of people don't think much about thunderstorms, but they are dangerous. Our area gets a lot of thunderstorms in the spring as well in the fall. So we really have 2 times a year that we get thunderstorms. Severe thunderstorms are storms that can produce winds up to 58 miles per hour.
Yes.
And it can have hail up to 3/4 of an inch. So if you hear a severe thunderstorm warning, it's not something to take lightly. We're talking extremely high winds and potentially damaging hail.
Okay.
So we need to try to find some place to take cover. February the 3rd is Wednesday. That's the day scheduled for the statewide tornado drill.
Okay.
And that is Tornado Safety Day. Most of the schools will conduct tornado drills that day. The county, depending on the weather that day, if it's overcast, we won't participate with the tornado sirens.
Okay.
But if it's a bright sunny day, we may actually participate at the county level by activating our tornado sirens.
Okay.
This is a good time to remind everybody that a tornado watch means that conditions are favorable for a tornado to form in your area. But a tornado warning means that a tornado is either identified on radar or has been seen by somebody in your area, and you need to take cover immediately.
Okay.
You want to go to the lowest floor. A basement is best if you don't have a basement. You want to go to an interior room away from windows.
Okay.
And take cover until the tornado warning is over.
All right. Are there any others that we need to be aware of during that week?
Thursday is Lightning Safety Day. Again, people don't think too much about lightning, but if you can hear thunder, you're close enough to a storm to be struck by lightning, even if the sun is shining. We try to encourage people to use the 30-30 rule.
Okay.
If you hear lightning, you want to wait 30 minutes before you go back outside, because even after the storm passes, lightning could still strike in your area.
Okay.
The last day is Flood Safety Day. We want to remind people about the saying, turn around, don't drown. Don't try to drive through floodwaters.
Right.
And we also want to encourage people to protect important documents in their homes, birth certificates, marriage license, things of that nature. Keep them in some type of waterproof container in case your home is flooded.
Okay.
You could save those documents.
All right, and one other thing that we want to remind people, especially not only just floods, but when there is a road that's blocked off, it's blocked off for a reason.
Yes, Chris, it's
So
definitely
kind of touch
blocked
on
off
that.
for a reason. A lot of times the surface beneath the road is damaged due to the fast-moving floodwaters. Looking at the road from the surface, it may look okay, but if it's blocked off, it's damaged to the point that it could cave in if you drive across it.
Okay.
So we definitely do not want to move any barriers or any roadblocks that close a road, because if we do and try to drive across it, we may make it across, but the next person that comes through may not.
Definitely.
So definitely don't move those barriers.
Okay. And real quick, if you could kind of touch on a system that people can get information to their cell phones or their homes, the Code Red Alert system.
Yes, we definitely need to put a plug in for Code Red. We're up to over 6,000 subscribers in Troup County now.
That's awesome.
But you can contact the local 911 center on their non-emergency telephone number, 706-883-1700, and talk to them about being added to our Code Red notification system. That's where you would get a notification of severe thunderstorm warnings, flood warnings, and tornado warnings on your cell phone.
Okay, and there is no cost for that, correct?
It is free of charge.
Okay, good. Well, Chief,
Subject to any text charges that your cell phone carrier may.
definitely. I always got to put that in there.
Yes.
Well, Chief, we want to thank you once again for taking time to share this wealth of information with our viewing audience, and we hope that our viewing audience enjoyed this segment of Smoke Signals, and just remember about emergency preparedness, winter safety, severe weather awareness week, and everything else in between that you need to know to help prepare you for any type of emergency disaster in our community or wherever you decide to travel. We want to thank each and every one of you for watching another segment of Smoke Signals. Until next time, take care.
This is Bobby McCollum with the City of LaGrange Garage, and I'm here to give you another winter car care tip for your vehicle. Now, one thing you do need to check through the winter is your antifreeze. Your antifreeze keeps your vehicle from freezing during the winter. It's supposed to have a proper 50-50 mix between antifreeze and water. Very easy way to check it. One thing you need to look at is your coolant level to see how much antifreeze you have in the vehicle. Now, it's going to have a maximum or minimum level on your reservoir, and it's going to tell you how much you need to put in it. Another thing you need to check is the actual freezing point of your antifreeze. And you can do that with a simple tester you can get at any part store. All you do is take the cap off of your radiator or reservoir. On this model vehicle we have a reservoir. Stick it down in and squeeze up your antifreeze into the tester. There will be a needle showing where your antifreeze test level is, and on this vehicle it's good to negative 45 degrees. Now, you need to have it up to about 0 degrees. You don't want it to be any higher than 0. If it's anything above 0, you need to flush out and refill your radiator with the proper level and type of antifreeze, and you can check your owner's manual for that. This is just another simple car care tip from the City of LaGrange. These are just general care tips for your vehicle. Please refer to your owner's manual for any vehicle specifications.